We're live. Welcome to CAD Live. I believe this is episode 36 of this beautiful live stream. This is another one of these whereby I haven't really teed this one up in advance because I was out and about and I've been quite busy doing stuff. But you guys should know by now that we go live 11:30 a.m. EST. And so here we are. And Ubik is in the house already saying, hi, gents. Good to see you, sir. Thank you for tuning in. And of course, I'm joined by a regular guest on the show and a regular face on the in the old sphere. It is Mr. Jack Napier. How are you, Jack?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me again, Troy. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely, mate. No, it is always a pleasure. It's good to catch up. I mean, albeit in a semi-professional manner in front of this audience, but nevertheless, it's always good to catch up with a fellow European degenerate. Is it fair to say? Well, no, you're kind of on the fence with degenerate, but a fellow European anyway.
European, yes. Degenerate. After hearing your stories, I don't know, man. I'm not on that level yet.
Man, I mean, there's always time, and I think one of the lessons from this stream from CAD Live, and as I say, we're 36 episodes in now, is that degeneracy, even if you don't get it immediately, it's something you can work on. You know, it's something that you can refine and improve over time. You can become more degenerate. You know, you don't have to be stuck as a traditionalist. You can work on it. You know, ease your way into it, sort of thing. And I mean, you can become as degenerate as me if you apply yourself and you work hard.
One day.
Absolutely.
After enough jaw exercises and some height variations, I can get there.
Well, indeed. We were last time you were on. We were talking actually about the black pill stuff, weren't we? Because we did that show about how I was uglier than top black pill content creators and all of that, and being a 5. And you know, I mean, let's not go retread all that old ground, but it is kind of ridiculous, isn't it, when you're being called a 5 by these people, and yet your dating life is in a really good place, and they are all complaining about not having any traction in dating. It's a bit like, well, what is your problem then? If you guys are so good looking and ripped and all the rest of it, then you know, what are you complaining about?
I don't know. I think it's too much focus on, let's say, the science of it, because a lot of women tend to say, I want a man who's 6 feet tall, has 6 figures, and a 6-inch dick, and blah, 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 blah. However, the weird thing is, these guys are red-pilled, right?
Well,
don't they know yet that women don't even know what they want? So they'll tell you what they want and end up getting something completely different anyway.
Well, I think one of the things is that a lot of the data that they use tends to be taken from the dating apps. And of course, as we know, the picture on the dating apps is somewhat different to the picture you get in real life. And that's not to discourage anybody from using the dating apps, because you absolutely should. But at the same time, I mean, of course, the dating apps is going to be largely predicated on looks, because that's how they work, right? I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. My experience has always been that when you approach in real life, you gain 1, 2, sometimes 3, 4 points when you make that approach in real life, because you're able to convey something of your personality. And that gives you that extra oomph, if you like. It bumps you up in terms of your SMV. And
absolutely.
And that's why you get so many guys who will say, you know, I do not very well on the apps, or I do okay on the apps, but when I approach in real life, I do much better. And the reason for that, I believe, is because they are utilizing their personality. They're bringing something to the table with the way that they put themselves across.
No, absolutely. I think it's mostly about the non-verbal communication that you have in real life.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, again, you know, it should go without saying, really, but their argument is a straw man argument, in the sense that I don't believe anybody on this side of the discussion is saying that looks don't matter. In fact, I think if anything, most content creators I know, I think we all say, no, looks matter. Yeah, so Max, look as good as you can. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think anyone's denying that. And they will then try to make a straw man argument to say these guys are saying looks don't matter, but they do. And it's like, well, no, chill out. We already said looks matter. That's not the,
We keep saying it's not the be-all, end-all.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying.
Well, some idiot, right? Some black pill idiot last week, I saw a video on some little channel, and he had taken one of my streams and edited it and taken a segment from one of the streams without permission, by the way, but whatever. And the title was something like "Debunking Troy Francis: Looks Don't Matter," and he had a bit of me talking, and then he'd linked it, or he pasted it to a video of some girls being interviewed, and they were actually in London being interviewed, and these girls were saying things like, oh yeah, I like a guy who's tall with a good jawline, and I like a guy blah blah blah, all of that kind of stuff. But what he'd done was he'd edited selectively what I was saying. So he had me sort of saying something like, oh, the black pill idea is that it's all about looks, blah 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 blah, and then he edited out the part where I directly said to the camera, of course, looks matter. Of course, you need to make sure that you look as good as you possibly can. Nobody's saying that you don't. He edited all of that out. And then and even then, it didn't even make it really look like I was saying the looks don't matter. But that was the impression he was trying to convey to his audience. This is how disingenuous these people are. They will try to position you as making an argument or holding a position that you don't even hold.
Oh, yeah, I know. But, I mean, that's, how do you say that? That's media these days. Media. You take someone's argument, you cut it up in such a way that you will look better in the end because of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's disgusting, really. Either go on a live stream together and debate a bit, but don't copy, paste, and cut it up so you can make a better argument. That's just distasteful.
I mean, if your argument is strong enough anyway, then you shouldn't need to do that. You should be able to. Your argument should have enough merit in its own right that you don't have to selectively edit what somebody else on the other side is saying in order to make your point.
Yeah.
But anyway, with all of that being said, that's not really what we're here to talk about today. What we're here to talk about today is politics. Because if you had bet $100,000 on Donald Trump winning a second term, would you now be on Twitter telling everybody that they're weak and they're losers if they are under the delusion that Donald Trump hasn't won the election? Or would you be going, oh, damn, I better work out how to make some cash so I can pay back that, so I can make up that $100,000?
I would shit myself. Seriously. But if I owe 100K, I believe it's even 130K.
Well, he's saying it's $130,000 that he's bet on Trump winning the presidency.
Oh, I mean, why would you do that? Even if you were so sure about it. I mean,
well, oof. I mean, it is what it is, really. But I think by the way, we're talking about a dude over on Twitter who has boasted about how he's bet this amount of money on Trump retaining the presidency, gaining a second term, etc., etc. Now, obviously, Biden having won, obviously there is a process going on. There are legal challenges going on. They don't seem to be doing particularly well, but there are legal challenges going on. And the Electoral College has to, of course, sit down and discuss it and make their decision. But, of course, we got the news yesterday that Trump, or at least the Republicans, have said, okay, guys, the transition starts. Now, Trump is now playing it down on Twitter and saying, well, just because we said the transition can start, it doesn't mean, and they're still going to keep fighting. But listen, I mean, any rational, sane analysis of this it doesn't look like Trump's going to overturn this. Okay. But anyway, so what, right? I mean, in the end, why are these people even spending so much time talking about this stuff? How does it really help anybody to be discussing this stuff?
In all honesty, I think politics has become like sport.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. It's a new retainer. I'm really having trouble saying certain words. But it's like your favorite football team going out into the field, beating the enemy, and you're like, yeah, my team is winning. And then all of a sudden they're losing, and you're like, oh, shit.
I think I think you're right. Carry on. No, I think you're right, but carry on.
Yeah, but instead of a football team, it's your political party. And you start to, how do I phrase that? You go all up into it, into something that at the end of the day doesn't really matter that much. Of course, certain policies and taxes and things like that, government schooling, that could all affect you, yes. But on the personal level, it all depends on how you act out your life, because nobody is telling you how to do that. Well, of course, in lockdown right now, things are going on, but both parties are doing that right now.
I mean, do you think it's correct to say that politics is for immature people who haven't grown up enough to realize that actually dating and getting laid is far more important?
I wouldn't necessarily say immature, but I know what you're doing, and for that I agree. For that I agree.
I mean, listen. You know, if Pat Stedman will just grow up a bit and realize that talking about Trump on Twitter is really a waste of time, and actually discussing relationships and Tinder and getting laid is really the preserve of the more mature man, I think the world will be a better place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe so. Like, he's a dating coach, right? Why not focus more on that? I believe he's married as well. I haven't seen his wife. I don't know anything about his relationship, so I can't argue about that. But why not focus more on that? Why go into politics?
Well, I mean, to be fair, right? I mean, like, we're doing a stream that's kind of about politics now, although I think we will veer into dating shortly. But I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with a content creator wanting to talk about different things. I think it's actually quite good in a way, and sort of quite. I don't know how you feel as a content creator, but actually, it's quite freeing in a sense to be able to sort of cover some different things, isn't it?
Oh, I go through a lot of things. One time it's dating, then it's minimalism, then it's
minimal dating.
Yeah, minimal dating.
Is that black pill? It's like I've introduced minimalism into my dating life. I just don't date anyone.
I don't know if that's black pill or that's more the MGTOW way, or even the no-fap guys. Like, I'm retaining myself to keep my value and not spreading it on some hussy who doesn't deserve it. Like, I don't care, man. The skankier, the better. In all honesty.
Yeah, exactly. People are saying, "Are you joking about this?" I think about this politics thing. I mean, yes, of course. You know, I'm being tongue in cheek, but fundamentally. And this actually goes back to that book, Freedom in an Unfree World by Harry Brown, which is a really great book about, well, that encapsulates a sort of libertarian viewpoint of how to live your life. Now, I believe Harry Brown was a libertarian candidate. So he was involved with the Libertarian Party, but the book is more of a general libertarianism with a small L, if you like. And one of the main points that he makes in that book is that fundamentally you can't affect this stuff, you know, and this is the crazy thing, because now people on Twitter and on social media believe that they can affect the outcome of something like the recounts or the legal process that's happening at the moment, and they believe that they are digital soldiers who are sort of, you know, raising the consciousness and all this kind of stuff. The truth of the matter is, if you're somebody with a small Twitter account like all of us and Mr. Stedman, it doesn't matter. It's not even a drop in the ocean. So all of that energy that you're spending is really being wasted. And wouldn't it be better just to utilize that energy in pursuit of something that actually affects your life on a personal level?
Sorry, I 100% agree with that, because as soon as you walk out the door and you start talking to people, you find out that in daily personal life, politics doesn't happen that very often. It's more of a, how do you say that? It's more of a how's the weather conversation. Know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Blah, 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 blah. But other than that, it really doesn't have much effect, other than taxes, of course. But
Yeah. Well, it's all, I mean, that's, yeah. I listened to a really interesting podcast last night, actually, by a dude who I think is actually coming from the left side of the equation, although he was kind of critical of Biden as well on this particular show. But he was just making that point that you've just made. He was saying that politics now in the USA, but I guess globally, I certainly probably the case in England as well, is it's become almost entirely disassociated from policy. You know, we're not really, and he was referring to some after polling surveys that were done in Florida, and he was saying that if you compare the policies that people in Florida support and then what Trump supports and what Biden supports, actually, even though Trump got more votes, actually, as on average, the state supported more of, you know, Biden's policies. But none of that matters. You know, it's not about actual policy. It's just about, has my team won or not? You know, and that's why you get this whole owning the libs type thing, or people bashing the Trumpers and all of this stuff. I mean, it's just a big pantomime. The whole thing, it is now show business, right? It is. It's got nothing to do in any meaningful sense with day-to-day life.
Absolutely. It has been polarized to the level of show business. Absolutely. It's like the Hunger Games almost. Well, not that bad, but like the Eurovision Song Festival. You know that?
Yeah.
Horrible. Absolutely horrible. Once a year. Always, that truly reminds me of the Hunger Games. Like how all these people are dressed, and the presenters and all that's what politics is right now. Team A or Team B, and our team is better than yours, and we're gonna kick your ass. And no, we're just gonna sit at a desk and do our work. And no, you're not a digital soldier. No worries. There's not gonna be a civil war or anything. People don't like to get shot. Might be a surprise, but it's LARPing. It really is LARPing at this point.
Even if there is, even if there is civil unrest, say in January or whenever, I mean, you can bet your life that none of these people that we see on Twitter are going to be there. You know, there's no manosphere dude is going to be on the front line. Do you know what I mean? Like unless they're serving rosé with ice, and you know there are free canapes being given out by Antifa or something. I mean, these dudes are just going to be nowhere near. You know, I think what's more likely is we might see some isolated, you know, civil unrest from some nut jobs kind of kicking off. But I think that the truth of the matter is most people, you know, they'll talk a big game on social media, but they're not really going to go out and you know, and get involved or sort of endanger themselves. And kind of rightly so, really. I mean, why would you want to, you know, like again, people are concerned with their day-to-day lives. You know, when it comes down to it, it's like, well, how is this going to impact on me personally, my employment, my family, my, you know, whatever. And those are really the important things. Having said that, of course, I think some of these dudes, many of these dudes maybe, particularly in our space, are doing this as a grift. Because actually the sort of, particularly the right-wing grift, I suppose, there's a lot of money in that.
It's my team. My team is represented in here. I want to join them because they think like I do. I feel related to them. And when you go on a grift like that, it's very easy to get cash from it. Yeah.
Well, someone like Alex Jones.
Oh, God.
Did you see that guy, Bell Ends of Men or something he's called, who was tweeting about, oh, is Alex Jones part of the manosphere and should he be and whatever? And it's like, well, for a start, no. But the thing about Alex Jones is he is a very, very, very successful grifter. You know, and he's become very prominent and made a lot of cash out of grifting naive people, basically. That's what it comes down to, and good and great. I mean, that's, like, you can't criticize that. But it's like P.T. Barnum, isn't it? It's like the circus ringmaster.
The weird thing is, though, Jones went on Joe Rogan, and they held his feet to the fire for everything he said. And most of it got proven right, which was pretty awesome. Like, Alex Jones made a statement, and Joe Rogan was like, hold on, Jamie, look that up. And they looked it up, they fact-checked him on the spot, and for the majority, he was right, which was pretty neat, actually. I mean, Alex Jones is like, he's a character. He's over the top. I mean, by God, man, I don't understand how people can listen to him for.
Yeah, I mean, look, absolutely. I mean, as I say, I mean, he is somebody who has made a career out of it, and good for him. And I'm not saying that everything he says is wrong, and I'm not saying that everything he says is right, but I'm just saying, if you are Alex Jones, then you can bang on about this stuff all day until the cows come home, because then you're making your revenue off the back of it. Happy days. But if you're just some ordinary guy, and you work in Walmart, and then you're logging onto Twitter and all day on your break or whatever, why should you then be wasting your time on this stuff?
Yeah, but I mean, to get back to Alex Jones, he's divorced, had a horrible divorce court trial with his ex-wife. I mean, you think he's happy, even though he's right or wrong or whatever, or he is Alex Jones. His personal life doesn't seem all that great.
Well, indeed. And I mean, and that brings me back to the original point, which is really, ultimately, wouldn't we all be better off if we concentrated on ourselves and on our immediate circumstances? Now, people will then say, and they are right to say this in the circumstances that we now find ourselves in. And I've seen this expressed on Twitter quite a lot recently, which is to say, well, if you say politics aren't important, what about lockdowns then? Or like, you're saying politics are important, but we've all been locked down since March. What about that? You see? Gotcha. And to be fair, they're kind of right, aren't they? Because restrictions are political. So in that sense, and this is, like, to be honest, like, I've never been a particularly political person. There's a couple of things where I've become more involved, more interested in politics. One of them is Brexit, simply because, and I don't want to go into a massive thing about Brexit, but simply because Brexit will have, or does have, an actual impact on my life, because after January the 1st, suddenly it becomes more difficult for me to go and live in Spain or in Holland or wherever else in the EU. Whereas before, I could have just rocked up and been like, right, I live here now, and that's it. From January the 1st, I can't. So it does make a tangible difference, in my life. And also now, we don't need a visa to go. We won't need a visa to go into the EU, but we will need to, suddenly you've got 90 days out of 180 days. Whereas before, I could have just gone to Europe and just stayed there for, as long as I wanted. So it does actually make a tangible difference to me on a personal level. And, restrictions as well. And I get it. And I was always a lockdown skeptic. I've always felt that, well, COVID is a real thing. And I actually do know, very sadly, I actually do know a couple of people who've passed away with COVID in London. Nevertheless, I've always been skeptical about the restrictions as they've been put in many places in the world, because because of the way that they've impacted on civil liberties, and frankly, because of the death rate for the virus. I question whether these such far-reaching restrictions are justified. But those two things are fairly unusual, aren't they? In the big scheme of things. I mean, we've never seen anything like these lockdowns before, right?
No, not in my lifetime. Not in my lifetime. It's weird because, I mean, I've had it, and it was just the flu for me. I had a bit of a headache, bit of a runny nose, but that was it. No loss of taste or anything. But I got tested positive, and after 5 days, it was done.
Yeah.
Yet we keep countries on lockdown. The death rate isn't that high. Infections are going down, I even believe. And the vaccine is coming. And now the discussion is, are we making it mandatory or not? Now, I have my opinion about that. I won't go into it, because then we'll open Pandora's box. But indeed, when it comes to these things, politics does affect your life.
Yes.
But again, this is not one party per se. This is government in general, instead of the whole red versus blue, left versus right.
Well, yeah, exactly. And so I'm just going live on Instagram as I'm taking this live on Instagram as well. Yeah, I mean, exactly. And people will say, and of course, as and when Biden comes in, will he bring in more restrictions? Probably. Is there going to be a big argument about that? Yeah, probably. But it has to be remembered, in the UK, we have a conservative government. We have a right-wing government, one of the most right-wing governments, actually, that we've had for 30 years. And they've got a massive majority as well. Again, they've got one of the biggest majorities that a conservative government has had since Margaret Thatcher. So we already have a right-wing government. And yet, the UK's still been in lockdown for most of the year. So the idea that this is a left versus right thing, I mean, people will say, yeah, but it's the leftists who are lobbying and creating all this. But it's like, well, yeah, man, but who are the people in charge? So it's, I don't know, man. But even then, for underlying it all, what can you actually do about it except for throwing a fit on Twitter?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I mean, if there is one thing I am pretty black-pilled about, it's politics. You can vote every 4 years, or every 4 years, sorry about that. And that's about it. You can give your opinion all you want, but nothing's going to happen.
Well, what about going down into the streets and protesting? What about going down to the barricades and being like, right, here we are, and fighting in the streets and all that kind of thing? I mean, because people would say, and we are seeing calls on social media, particularly in America, like, right, the time for action and all that kind of thing. I'm still skeptical, the value of that. But, I mean, what do you think about that?
A bit double-sided. Have protests worked in the past? Yes, they have. But those were different times. Those were way different times. Like in the Netherlands, we had that as well. What was it about again? Something about the cycling roads. Something about that. And an entire union striked. Now, don't pin me down on this one. I don't know the details anymore. But because of that strike, the Dutch government said, okay, we're going to fix all the cycling roads. So, okay, that worked. But as long as a majority of the working class does not protest, it won't matter. As you can see, most protesters, and we're going stereotypical here, most Antifa members don't have a job. They don't. Or they have some lousy, not really working government job. Those people have the time to actually protest instead of being someone of value somewhere. People who are way too busy, need to make a living, need to get dinner ready, so to say, need to get food on the table. They don't have time for this. They need to get their daily lives going. Instead of marching in the streets, screaming and giving their opinion to somebody who doesn't really care about it. No, they have shit to do.
Yes, exactly. Well, that is certainly true. But in the end, I mean, pre-Brexit, when there was a lot of anti-Brexit feeling, or at least there was a lot of feeling that there should perhaps be a second referendum, and there was quite a good case made to say, listen, we get that there was a referendum, people made their decision, but it was pretty close, and maybe the realities of this thing weren't kind of quite thought through, so why don't we have a second referendum? And I think on one of the marches, there was a huge march in London, and obviously it registers, people notice it, but it didn't make any difference. And I think they had something like 1 million people or something. It was really big. I am skeptical. Although saying that, there were riots over the poll tax in the United Kingdom back in the day when Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister, and that did end up with the policy being overturned. So direct action to some extent, maybe it can work. But it has to be something. I think it has to be something that directly impinges on your life personally. And I would agree that something like restrictions, if you're somebody who's got a business and you've been effectively put out of business by this and everything else, I would agree that is probably one of those things. But in my lifetime, really, I mean, I could count on one hand, really, those things. For the most part, most politics doesn't really touch me, right?
Nope. Same here. And I like to keep it that way.
Yeah, in a meaningful sense. Because I know people will say, yeah, no, it does. But in a meaningful sense. I mean, look, this is the thing. And this is the thing about sovereignty and about, autonomy and everything like that. The notion of absolute freedom, I believe, is always an illusion. You're never going to be entirely free. I mean, even if you're living the minimalist dream, even if you're like Cappy, or you're sort of like, oh yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I mean, like as much as you try to remove yourself from the system, you're never going to get complete freedom. You're always going to be under the control of the state, or you're going to be under the control of the states that you visit, or whatever, right? And to some extent, you've just got to accept that. You've just got to accept, okay, that's the reality of the situation. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to try to change the actions of the government in X, Y, or Z country. What I'm going to do instead is work out ways that I can sort of maneuver. And that might be moving to a different place, or traveling, or, having residencies in different places and things like this. But I would rather spend my time looking at my own personal circumstances and how I can maneuver with those, rather than trying to overthrow or spend all of this time on social media complaining about Biden or complaining about Trump or whatever it is.
It's and I don't know the English saying, but we have a saying in Dutch that you have to row with the rows you got. And you can roughly translate it back into, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Yeah. So you have to play with the hand you're given. That's the English one.
Yes.
And I'm a big proponent of that. Like, okay, circumstances suck. You and I both have experience with that. We both come from abysmal circumstances, but we made the best of it. We made the best of it to such an extent that we can look back and say, whatever happened back then does not affect me anymore now, because I'm living the life I want. I have not let what happened affect me to such a degree that my entire life depended on that, and therefore my entire life would have been miserable. No, we got a bad hand, yet we're here. And that's how I like to look at it.
Well, Adam Simmons,
the hand you're dealt.
No, I agree. Adam Simmons, who's a regular viewer and commentator, thanks for tuning in. Cheers, Adam. Says, we've all been affected by politics this year. Not being able to go to the effing pub is political. Well, I agree. I mean, he's right, isn't he? But it still begs the question, what are we going to do about it? And I suppose we could rouse the CAD army to everyone to take to the streets and everyone put a 1 in the chat. Come on, guys.
What would your banner look like? Like this giant BDSM mask, or
yeah. Just a giant GIMP mask. Or everyone's it could be like Anonymous, but everyone's wearing those like leather GIMP masks and like marching on Parliament.
That would be way more freaky than the Guy Fawkes mask.
Yeah,
way more.
Yeah, kind of hot as well. I'm only joking. But yeah, no, I agree with him. And to be fair, I mean, like this year has, I suppose, blown my non-engagement message out the water a little bit, because it's very hard to argue with people to say that this year the political hasn't impinged on the personal, because it absolutely has. I mean, like he says, at the moment in England, in the UK, the pubs are closed. I haven't even read all the regulations for next week yet. Well, we don't know how it's going to affect different locations, but it's likely that's going to continue. Normal life hasn't existed in this country since the beginning of the year, and that is a bummer. I mean, there's no putting a gloss on that. It is bad, and he's right, it is political. But again, what do you do? And I mean, the argument of somebody like, let's talk about the Tates for a moment, and I know they are they polarize opinion, but I mean, what the Tates would say is, well, get 5 passports, get crypto, get FU money, make it so that you are anti-fragile, so that you are able to, if you don't like what's happening in the UK, go somewhere else. If you don't like what's happening in Romania, go somewhere else. Give yourself on a personal level that freedom, whereby you can just move out of the situation. And I kind of like that thinking.
I mean, again, look at the hand you're dealt with at that certain situation. What can you do? What can't you do? There's always something you can do. Okay, you can't go to the pubs anymore. Can you still go on Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, whatever? Yes. Can you still do day game to a certain degree? Yes.
Well, I mean, I've had people when I've had these kind of discussions. I've had people saying, I had somebody on Twitter the other day going, I was criticizing digital soldiers or digital warriors on Twitter, and this guy went, "Well, are you the kind of guy who just lets life happen to you? This is about right." And I'm a bit like, mate, you've got 26 followers on Twitter. You sitting there posting memes is going to make zero difference.
Bingo.
Like zero difference.
Bingo.
And it's sort of like, I get the sentiment. I do get the sentiment. But in reality, you screaming about Biden or screaming about Trump or all of this stuff, it's like it's an echo in the wind, in a tempest, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, it's meaningless.
Yeah. I mean, when I turn my phone off, when I turn my laptop off, Twitter doesn't exist. All the media articles do not exist. Yeah. I go outside. Of course, I see some couple of people walking with a mask on, but the majority, in my town at least, when they're out of the stores, are not wearing a mask. And lately, there's some pretty hot girls walking around, and I'm like, what? What's happening here? And I'm getting at that age where I'm like, how old are you? I'm getting bad at guessing an age. Know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not really sure, and I'm not sure I want to go for it because what if? But they're all walking without a mask. All of them. Well, why focus on everybody who's wearing one when there's so many people not doing it?
Absolutely. Mike says, this global communism you can't run from. I'm not sure about that, though. I've got a Russian visa. Now, you could make the argument that the whole world is going towards the left, but I think there are territories in the world. It would be quite hard to support that argument, right?
Ironic, isn't it, that Russia, of all countries, is not going to the left anymore? No, but seriously though, have you read the Gulag Archipelago?
Not yet, no. Have you?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
It's depressing. It really is depressing. The way people were treated are horrible. Plus, it's still mandatory reading in Russian high school. For good reason. For very good reason. But Putin ain't gonna let that happen anymore. Okay, Putin has his own criticisms, of course. Let's be honest. But there's a snowball's chance in hell that he's gonna let it go back to what it was.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, so I think this whole thing about you can't escape is not entirely correct. I think certainly in our lifetimes, in the lifetime of everybody here watching this, and you, and certainly me, Jack, because I may not even make it to the end of this stream. I think that we have still got some safety havens to run to. But I mean, there again, the whole thing about Biden, communism, all this kind of stuff. I mean, the reality is Biden gets inaugurated. It's not going to turn into, it's not going to turn into like suddenly there's queues at, for stores and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's a nonsense, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's an unpopular opinion. Trump did some things that were pretty leftist. He printed off, how much was it? $3 billion or trillion dollars, and gave out stimulus checks. He actually started a soft version of UBI, Universal Basic Income.
Well, he did.
Was Trump.
He did, and also in this country as well. I mean, people say in this country because we now have Boris Johnson as the prime minister, and of course, at the election, Jeremy Corbyn, who was a very leftist politician, was on the opposing team, and Boris Johnson got a massive majority. Jeremy Corbyn's out of the picture, whatever. But people are now looking at the picture in the UK and saying this is more of an extreme socialist situation than we would have had if even Jeremy Corbyn had got in under normal circumstances. So, because obviously all of this, huge amounts of money have been pumped in to keep the economy going. We've got everybody sitting at home getting furlough checks, etc., etc. Now, of course, these are exceptional circumstances, and Boris and indeed Trump didn't go into office with the intention of paying people to sit around and watch Netflix at home. But nevertheless, the outcome of it has been the same. The outcome of it is that we are seeing, as a result of this virus and the restrictions, we are seeing a sort of, like you say, soft socialism happening under right-wing governments.
Mm-hmm. So you can't really avoid it anymore. Even no matter who you vote for, it's gonna happen. This is as conspiratorial as I'm gonna get. This is what most of the world government wants. You can vote every now and then, sure, but we're gonna go that direction anyway. Because when you look at it, how much can there still be done? We truly live in the best of times.
Yes.
When you have a certain amount of money, there is a grievous amount of free time that you have. Now, how will you spend that? The majority of the world's problems have been solved. Not everybody likes me saying that, but look at that. Poverty rate is going down. World hunger is going down. You name it. And especially in the West, what is it that we have to be concerned about? Not much.
Yeah.
And since with all the money printing and inflation and things like that, and government wanting to take more care of people who aren't able to do it for themselves for whatever reason, it's not going to stop. Whether you vote right wing or left wing, we have gone to the point of no return when it comes to that. In my humble opinion. Do I think that's bad? I don't know. Does it really affect me? To a certain degree, I have to pay more taxes. Yes. Do I like that? No. But I kind of have a minimalist lifestyle anyway. So as long as they leave me alone, I'm fine. Well, as long as government doesn't get into my way when I want to date girls, or when I, let's say, want to have my dinner, whatever, I'm fine. I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
In all honesty, because you can't stop it anyway. You can vote every 4 years and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. But these keyboard warriors will say, yeah, but that's just passive, And like that guy said to me, are you just somebody who lets life happen to you? And I'm like, well, no, actually, I'm not. But I'm also intelligent enough to see the things that I can control and the things that I can't.
Mm-hmm.
And that, by the way, is the Serenity Prayer that gets used in 12-step groups. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And, what are the things I can control? Can I control if Trump overturns Biden's election win in 2020, 2021? No, I can't. I can't control that. And nor can anybody else on Twitter. Even Cerno, even Mike Cernovich can't control that. So, okay. Well, what are the things that I can control? Well, I can control what I do for a living. I can control the people that I spend time with. I can control how much exercise I do. I can control how many day game approaches I make. Like there are things that I can control that have a direct application to my life. So why not concentrate on those things rather than the stuff that I can't control?
Exactly. And especially since you and I are Europeans, what can we do about American politics?
Well,
nothing.
Exactly. And I mean, listen, I'm not even, of course, who is the person who is the president of the United States? Of course, it has global importance. So yeah, I get all of that. But really, to be honest, in the UK, it matters in the sense that it's going to have a matter in terms of trade and these kinds of things. But like the reason that I'm talking about this is because it's a thing that a lot of other people are talking about. It's a zeitgeisty thing, and therefore it's worthy of attention. But it's not really, even the person who is the Prime Minister of the UK doesn't have that much effect on my day-to-day life. The fact that it was Boris, if it had been Jeremy Corbyn, yeah, some things would have been different. Probably my taxes may have been somewhat higher and so on and so forth. But in the main, it wouldn't have made a massive difference to my everyday day-to-day life.
Absolutely, and I 100% agree with you on that. It's the same here. We have had a right-wing government so we're at Rutte 3 now, so that's about 12 years almost. A right-wing government. They're leaning very far to the left right now when it comes to environmental policies and the EU and things like that. So even with a right-wing government, you're going to go that way.
Yeah.
And hello from Poland, hello from the Netherlands here, Magdalena. But again, give me the knowledge or the wisdom give me the wisdom to know what I can control and what I cannot.
Yeah.
I don't know the entire thing, but that's what it comes down to. So can I control government spending trillions of dollars on something I don't even barely believe in? No. Can I control what I spend $100 on? Yes. So I'd rather focus on that. Hello from Lisbon. God damn, Troy, you really have a global audience, don't you?
International, man. Mike says policies have a direct effect on your life, man. Well, yeah, of course they do. But, they have a varying degree of effect on one's life. So some policies have a big effect, like Brexit, COVID restrictions, etc. Some have an effect, but it's a lesser effect. I don't know, like whether we are part of the European space program or not. It sort of has, but it doesn't really have a direct effect on me getting up in the morning and having a cup of tea and whether I go to the gym or not, So a lot of it doesn't have much of an effect. Some of it has a big effect, but I would say that things like, obviously, COVID is such a black swan event.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I can't think in my lifetime of a political event that has had such a big impact on the personal. Now, I guess, well, certainly in the UK, and I guess we've been lucky here, and we've been lucky in this period in history as well, because we haven't been in a situation where there's been a war and suddenly you've had the government saying, right, turn up to the military center to get your uniform and do all of that. So I do accept that there are going to be times when perhaps we do need to be more political. We do need to, take up the cause somewhat more. I get that. And perhaps the current moment in history is one of those moments. But still, you've got to think about what you can personally do. And what it boils down to in the end is a lot of people who talk a big game on social media, but what are they actually doing?
Exactly. You're talking about it on Twitter, on a social media platform. It's words, it's screaming into the void. It's not like I'm tweeting out that, hey, I think President Donald Trump should have won and Biden is a dick. It's not like the Supreme Court is going to see that. Going to look at that like, this Jack Napier guy has got about 4,500 followers on Twitter. That's a lot of people. We could take that seriously. Yeah, Biden's a bit of a dick, isn't he? You know what? We're going to give it to Trump. Screw the Electoral College. We're the Supreme Court. We like this Napier guy. I like the way he looks. I like the way he speaks. We're going to give it to Trump. Thanks, Jack. It's not going to happen. Would be cool, though.
Yeah.
I would do Rolo just to piss off Anthony Dream Johnson. Like Rolo Tomasi is now the president of the United States, and then watch Anthony Dream Johnson have a complete meltdown. But that's not going to happen, unfortunately.
Well, okay, so a couple of things here. So Genesis, and by the way, anyone who's got any questions, any points that you want to make about this, or just more generally about dating and the dating marketplace and all of that good stuff, put them into the chat and we will get to them. But Genesis says, so will Troy and Jack get vaccines? No. Interesting question. What do you think?
No, I won't. I've already had COVID and it was just the flu for me. I'm not going to do it.
Tell you what, myself, I'm just waiting for Bill Gates to inject me with
it's super
so that we can get Kit Kat Club open in Berlin again. I think if Bill Gates wants to come over onto the stream and just inject the mark of the beast into me, as long as we can get Kit Kat Club open again, I'm down. No, I'm being flippant. I mean, look, it's an interesting question. I was talking to someone about this earlier. I kind of need to have a think about it, really. I mean, I'm not somebody, and I don't really want to get massively into this because it's not my wheelhouse, really. I'm not massively anti-vax. I don't see the evidence for some of the more wacky anti-vax stuff that you see out there. On the other hand, I think that there are concerns from people about, well, this thing seems to have been developed pretty quickly, and I don't know. Are there side effects? Well, we don't really know. So it's something that I think I would need to think about and look at the evidence and understand a bit more about it before I come down on one side or the other. But I'm certainly not I think there's a gamut of people. On the one side, you've got hardcore anti-vax people who are just like, this is all about control and it's about, microchipping and, all of this kind of stuff. And I'm not really on board with that. But then on the other side of it, you've got people who are just a bit more like, well, how much do we know about this vaccination? Is it safe? Is it and I think that's a bit more of a reasonable position to take. So, yeah.
I'm just skeptical. I'm just very, very skeptical. Again, not a conspiracy theorist or whatever, but when you look at the majority of ministers of health, they all look like shit. They all do. Like all of them. Repulsive cretins. And then they're going to tell me what I need to do to get healthy. I'm like, what?
Basically, right. We need to see a Chad health minister, don't we? If you saw If you saw it like a Chad health minister, he's got 666, he's got the six pack, he's ripped, he's lifting. Ideally what we want to see is like the health minister at the gym lifting. We want to see what he's benching. We want to see what he's deadlifting. And then if he comes on TV and he's like, right, guys, listen, this is the vaccine, but this is what I'm benching. And I recommend you guys take the vaccine.
I know you're paying me, but you're right.
This is the thing. Like in the UK, we have this dude, Chris Whitty. And I don't know. I mean, like maybe I can find a picture of him, but like to me, it doesn't look like he lifts. Should we be listening to these people if they don't lift?
Or at least not even follow their own advice. I mean, in all seriousness, have you seen the health minister of Belgium?
No, I don't think so.
Absolute obese woman, morbidly obese, telling the people of Belgium how they should live.
Sorry, I have seen that actually. I have seen that. I mean, like, I don't know about that dude, Fauci in the United States. Does he lift? But have a look here. This is Chris Whitty from the UK.
Let's see.
Do you see that guy? Has that come up?
Oh,
yeah. You see, I mean,
I'm sorry, but he just looks so funny.
He said he looks like a sad or something like that. I mean, here's another. I don't know. I'll try and get some other pictures up. I haven't worked out how to do this yet, where you could just do a full screen of it, but you get the idea anyway.
Oh, wow.
I mean, like, it doesn't look like he lifts.
No.
To be fair, so should we be taking the advice of these people?
Ooh. I mean, he looks like what? Okay, so he looks like the image I think people would have in their heads if you would describe Pat Stedman.
That's what Pat Stedman's going to look like in a few years' time.
Like, we know this dating coach, and here's how he looks. And I think people would just laugh at you.
Well, I mean, a lot of people follow that guy, but I think he is going down the QAnon route now. He's going down the right-wing grift stroke conspiracy theory route. And, I mean, like, I don't agree with that stuff. I think he is spreading a lot of stuff that is worrying. But as a grift, pretty damn good. Mm-hmm. I think if he carries on down this route, I think what we're going to see is, I think we will see, these legal challenges will come to nothing. I think Biden will be inaugurated, but I think what we will see is a bunch of people saying, just continuing with the election with stolen narrative. And I think that will be the new MAGA. And the guys who capitalize on that, I think they'll get a big audience and they'll end up making a load of money because you've got that nice Patreon money coming in, haven't you?
Yeah.
All of that. Magdalena, who's really from over on.
She one of yours?
No, she's from over on Instagram. She said something interesting. She says, I've lost the comment now, but she basically said she's a nurse, but she doesn't want to take the vaccine. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting. I wonder if you're still on the stream, Magdalena, I don't know if you can tell us why that is, but she's saying she doesn't want to. I can't find the comment now, but I just saw her comment before. So I'll be interested to know why. But I think a lot of people have got that sort of, I don't know. I mean, it's just all been rushed through very quickly, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I thought it was weird that the announcement of the vaccine came just after Biden was announced the winner. Now, I'm not saying there's something going on. I'm just saying it was a bit of a coincidence because I joked about it with friends. I'm like, oh, COVID's going to be over as soon as Trump loses. And then that comes out and I'm just like, really? Like, really? But who knows? As you said, what does the vaccine do? What do we know about it? Will it work? Do I believe people died of COVID? Yes, absolutely, because the elderly are more fragile than the young. I had COVID, and it only took me 5 days to recover from it. Older people, as in the elderly, die of the normal flu as it is, and then you get COVID. So it's going to be disastrous for them. Those people need a cure. They need a vaccine. I'm all for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, as I say, sadly, I do actually know 2 people who have, who have died with it, and I know other people who've had it. So, I mean, there's no doubt, like this is certainly a problem, and it's certainly it's a terrible, terrible thing for people who are in those vulnerable groups, for sure. And yeah, I mean, it's good that it looks like they are finding a vaccination for this. I mean, the Oxford one here is sounding pretty good from what I'm hearing about it. But yeah, I mean, we are just in a very strange time now, aren't we, in terms of political narratives in general, though? Because, and I think social media, I don't know if we're ready for social media, and I think ultimately I think social media could end up kind of destroying all of us, because there is no foundation of truth anymore, is there? There is no sort of like you've got, basically, if you look at Twitter, you've got I suppose the majority of people who, are like, okay, so Biden will be president in 2021 and all the rest of it. And then you've got a group of people who literally, they just fundamentally don't believe that Biden won the election. Their reality is that Trump won the election and all of this is a sham. And when you've got people who are looking at the same events and have fundamentally contrary beliefs about what happened, that is a bit of a problem, isn't it?
It is. And it's scary, really, because a coworker and I talk about this. We don't even necessarily disagree a lot, but he's more to the left and I'm more to the right. He's more like, no, we should help the people more. And I'm more like, well, people should learn to take care of themselves more. But him and I agree on, where do you get normal news these days? It's all polarized. It all is. It's all written in a certain way to get your emotions engaged. It's no longer informative. It's entertainment.
Yeah, indeed. And that's actually what Black Label Logic was saying, wasn't he? He was saying something similar to this. It's all about rage bait. Really, it's all about getting people angry and clicking and like, and numbers ultimately, because everybody wants to get eyeballs onto their content for advertising, basically, or for whatever else. So Magdalena says, in Poland, we don't need it because there are more cases than the government says. So I guess she means that it's already gone through the population. They all get sick and then the problem will be over. So I guess it's already sort of like...
Yeah, they're taking the, what's it called? They're taking the, so let's say you get infected by it, and after that, your what's the word I'm looking for, Troy? What's the word I'm looking for?
Immune.
Yes, they're going for the immune route. They're getting everybody infected, get it done with, and then we move on.
Herd immunization, Sabina says. By the way, we have Facundo in Argentina. Hello, Facundo. Nice. Welcome. Good to see you, man.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias, indeed. So, Genesis says Poland sounds nice. Well, Poland's a great place. I mean, I was hoping to get over to Poland this year, actually, but obviously with the whole thing, it's any sort of travel's been difficult. But Poland's a great place. I really like Warsaw. I like other places that I visited in Poland. I visited Szczecin a few times, which is kind of a cool place. Nice. And Krakow I haven't yet, actually, but I do want to visit Krakow, which is obviously another very well-known place that a lot of people go to. But I know there are lots of other beautiful towns and cities and things in Poland as well.
What do you usually do? Get a hostel or a hotel?
No, I'm kind of a hotel guy these days. I have to say, I'm sort of like I'm sort of that kind of vintage now, where I like to try to stay in nice places if I can, or nicer places. You know, I mean, Airbnb's the other thing though. But last time when I was in Warsaw, I stayed in. I stayed in a Airbnb actually. Last time I was there, but I think now I'd probably go for hotels.
Oh, nice.
You know, that's how I roll, man. You know, what can I say? Anyway, listen. We have been. So she's saying actually they say 10,000. But we have 2 to 3 times more. So I guess the idea is that the whole thing with cases and so on. I mean, it's all a very confusing picture, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is,
because if it's gone through populations earlier than people thought, and it's been much more extensive than people thought, then is the immunity greater than they think, and therefore are all of these restrictions and indeed the vaccination actually required? Oh, look at this. We've got Mr. Chris Martin saying, "Hey, Troy and Jack, catching you guys live from Uganda, East Africa. Welcome to the stream, sir. Thank you for tuning in. This truly is a global meeting of minds, isn't it?
Mr. Worldwide."
Absolutely. Jerin says, which is the best place in Europe for game? I don't know, Jack. What do you think about that?
Oh man, I haven't traveled enough to say that, but being a foreigner for like whatever country you go to, but your own, is good.
Yes,
it really is. When I was in England, like the accent gets me a long way. Like not everybody guesses that I'm not British. But at a certain point, they're like, "You're not British, are you?" And then you go, "Well, I'm Dutch." And then, boom, you're in. Like, oh, you're Dutch. Ooh.
It's funny because your accent is. I can tell after you after you say a couple of sentences, then the foreignness of your accent comes through to an English person. But on a very casual listen, you actually sound quite as though you've got quite a refined English accent. And then you listen a bit more and you're like, oh, hang on a minute. Actually, there is a foreignness there. So I can imagine that playing pretty well, actually. Okay.
American girls love me. I've met a couple of American girls here in the Netherlands and a couple of them when I was in Turkey. They just love the accent. They just love foreigners. It's especially Europeans. I don't know what your experience is with American girls, but for some odd reason, we're art to these women. It's like, oh, he's European. Oh.
Magdalene says people don't want to be tested. Doctors don't want to give tests. Well, yeah, I mean, you know, it's like I think a lot of people here. Well, a lot of people here don't want to be tested because if you get tested and then you've got it, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks, and obviously people don't want to do that because you know, and sometimes can't afford to do it because they've got to work and everything else. So yeah, I mean, the test and trace thing over here has been, you know, shambolic. Partly because of problems with the app, but also just generally because people don't want to really engage because people don't want to have to sit around at home for 2 weeks. In terms of the English accent and America, I mean, obviously there's this, it's well known that supposedly that's an attractive thing and everything. I mean, I've had varying reactions to my British accent. I think, I mean, because I've largely been to some of the bigger cities, you know, like New York, and I mean, New York's the place I've been to the most. I don't think they're that blown away by it there, to be honest, because it's a very international place, and you know, it's like another British guy, whatever, you know. But I would imagine in other places that would be different. Just have to watch. Is it Love Actually when the British guy goes over to America? Exactly. So, you know, but anyway, look, we've been on for over an hour now, and we're mainly chatting about this politics stuff, actually, which is a bit of a departure for this channel. But I think it's good to, you know, lean into that stuff from time to time. But ultimately, of course, really, what everyone should be talking about is dating and their personal lives, because what's more important than us coming together as individuals and loving one another?
Feel the love, man. Feel love.
Exactly. And that's what this channel's all about, feeling the love. So Jack, with that being said, what are you up to at the moment? Have you got anything coming up? Is there anything you want to push the guys towards and the girls towards to have a look at?
Link to my channel is in chat. I have a live stream every Friday night, Saturday morning for us Europeans, called the Red Evening, where I talk with Rob from robsays.net and The Masculine Geek, mostly about life after the red pill. So what happens when you get all this knowledge, you've gotten the girls, what's next? What's next in life? Because you can only date so much in a day, in a week, whatever. How do you fill the time with all the other things to do? Other than that, well, I think I'm going to play it down a bit because now the braces are in, and as some people might have heard, my speech has worsened a bit. So there won't be a lot of narration anymore. I wrote an entire article that I wanted to narrate for my channel, but I'm going to wait with that a bit. I do membership live streams on Thursday and a weekly podcast for that as well called the Coffee Cast, which will be uploaded every Sunday. It's a Q&A podcast, but that's all on the YouTube channel and on the membership area, and the link to that is in the chat.
Indeed, absolutely. Well, thank you ever so much for that. And as far as my stuff is concerned, obviously, please do subscribe to this channel. Hit that red subscribe button and hit the notifications bell so that when I've got new content, new videos coming up, you will be informed. I am going live every day. Well, certainly for the rest of this week and into next week until the end of November, basically, at the same time, which is 11:30 a.m. EST, 4:30 p.m. in the UK, because this is the run-up to the relaunch of CAD Academy, which is my world-class course on charisma and dating and how you can improve your charisma skills and your dating skills so that you can punch above your weight in the dating marketplace. So that is opening again for new students on the 1st of December. You'll have 5 days to enroll between the 1st and the 5th of December. We're capping it at 100 students. So you have to act quickly to get into the course. It's a 10-hour video course, really in depth. You've seen the video stuff, haven't you, Jack? I mean, you know.
I have. It is a lot. It is. You put a lot of effort into it. It's, how many hours was it? 10?
There's 10 hours worth of video content on there, yeah. And there's also some in-field footage and things like this as well. So there's a lot of
in-field footage is great. I still love that one. Excuse me, I just saw you and I instantly fell in love with you. I was like, what?
Exactly. So yeah, and then you get the 10 live webinar sessions as well that will happen in December. Well, we'll be teaching guys. I mean, Jack, hopefully you'll be able to come in again. I mean, you've been in the live webinars before, haven't you, Jack?
Yes,
it's always a good time in those private sessions, right?
Absolutely, they're very informative as well. Like for the participants, as for myself as well. Seeing you guys teach these guys, me getting asked questions. It's an experience for me as well, and I absolutely love it.
Absolutely. So make sure to watch out for more details on that, which I'll be putting out this week. And the main thing to do really is obviously follow this channel, but also get onto my free email list. So there's a link below, or I'm going to put the link below in after we finish. Get onto my free email list because I will be sending out some very special information about how you can enroll in the course throughout this week. So get onto that. That's effectively the waiting list. So get on that waiting list. And all of that being done, as Daniel says, please do smash that like button. Give me a like, give me a comment, all of that good stuff. Helps out with the algorithm. And really, that's about it. But I will be back tomorrow with something different topic. But just to say thank you ever so much to everybody for tuning in. Thanks to Jaren. Thanks to Magdalena. Thanks to Daniel, Genesis, Anon, who says hello from Bulgaria, actually, by the way, which is another place I'd like to visit. Thanks to Chris Ijipu and Mike and everybody else who's Sabina and everybody else, including Shane, who has been on the stream today. Yeah, and that's it, really. So it's goodbye from me. And thanks ever so much, Jack, for joining me on today's stream as well.
Thank you for having me again.
So we will see you guys again very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.